Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods, yeah. One in particular, I'm just a messenger, let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table. Woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? It is week 2. Week 2 is technically over with now. We saw our final game last night. It's already week 3, which is just insane to me. We're already in week 3 of the fantasy football season. It really kind of kicks off tomorrow with waiver runs. Then you got Thursday night football game. And it feels like we're going to be right back here again really quickly. And before we know it, the season's going to be over with. And might not be a bad thing with the way injuries hit us, as we talked about a lot on yesterday's podcast. But it does always suck to see the NFL season flying by. Matt, how are we doing today on this beautiful Tuesday?
Well, as you can see by my title, I got Bortle today. So it could be better. I don't know. You know, your discussion of waiver wires, you really realize how much time it takes to manage the many teams you drafted during COVID when you get an injury week like week 2. And so this morning I'm like, I'll do it for a few minutes while I'm watching the news. And my wife, are you not going to get ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I'll do the rest of these later.
I did like 20 of mine last night, and I've got to get through the rest of them today because I'm just like, I really got to look through. I know I got Cortland Sutton on a bunch. I need to demote to my IR and
27 shares.
Golly, man, this has been a rough year, but we did not get a chance to recap the Sunday night football game yesterday's episode, so we're going to recap as I mentioned on if you read the writing, whatever. I was going to have a banner, but it covers up. I haven't had time to fix it, guys. I'm too busy. This is ridiculous. We're going to recap the Sunday night game between the Patriots and the Seahawks. We'll talk about the Monday night football game last night, a little bit of a shocker with the Saints and the Raiders. And then we'll go over our waiver wires, talk about some of the guys, throw a couple guys at each position out there. We'll get Matt's thoughts on it. I'll give you guys kind of my thoughts on who you guys should target for your waiver wires that will likely run tomorrow. So for the Sunday night game, the Seahawks barely hang on to beat the Patriots 35-30. It was a really good game. I kind of hope Cam Newton stays with New England with the way he's been playing, man. I mean, as much as none of us want to see New England have success there. They're kind of a fun team with him there. But Cam gets you 34 points. Burkhead gets you 8. Edelman 25, and N'Keal Harry 15. The offense definitely looked a lot better. We saw Cam Newton passing more. We did not see that much in week 1. Probably a little bit of a function of him not getting a real training camp in preseason. So they did a lot of runs with him. We saw him pass more. A big recipient of that was Julian Edelman, who I'm not going to lie, just kind of out of pure luck had him ranked high in our rankings and ended up finishing up there. But I mean, what did you think about this, Dennis? Dennis was the one all in on the Patriots in the preseason. I mean, you were kind of in on the Bills, and with the way Cam Newton looked yesterday, and even in week 1, starting to think maybe we should be a little bit higher on the Patriots. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think they're a bad team. I think they'll probably be more of a playoff contender than we thought. I still like Buffalo to win the division. I don't think Buffalo did anything that make me feel worse about them. Yeah. I feel worse about some of the other potential AFC contenders. But, you know, the big question that nobody can answer until you play games is, what is Cam Newton? Is he the Cam we saw the last 2 years that couldn't get it done and was injured and ends up getting bounced out of Carolina, or is he the Cam that in 2015 was an NFL MVP and took his team to the Super Bowl? He looks a lot more like that Cam. I think after week one, they eased off on running with him quite as much as that being a feature of the offense. They did a lot better passing. Be curious to see even how much more dynamic it can be when they get James White back. Still not running the ball incredibly well, and there are still some limitations they're living into. That last play of the game, they put 3 tight ends and a fullback out there, and you pretty much knew they were just lighting up, and Cam was either going to run it in or get stopped. I don't know if that's the answer long term, but it was nice. They talked about Julian Edelman in that game having more down the field passes than he ever did in kind of their older, the other version of their offense with Tom Brady. Harry, they were working him in there. Demir Bird, who, we made jokes about Dennis ranking Demir Bird and having Demir Bird in some lineups before. He actually looks like he might have a role. They don't really have a tight end. I think it's going to be a work in progress, but this looks like it could easily be a 9-11 win team, which should be good enough to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think you really have to be encouraged by what you saw out of Julian Edelman. I mean, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, because I did go back and finish watching the game yesterday, he got the most receiving yards he's ever had in a single game in his career in that game with Cam Newton, which is kind of surprising.
I thought they also said that he had the longest pass catch of his career in that game.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Which makes sense because, he is the master of the, 8 to 12 yard pass over the middle, catching 15 balls, and they're doing something different.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an Edelman owner, you've got to be thrilled, because I would think, especially with them talking about wanting to make Harry kind of their possession guy and deep threat guy, possibly, that Edelman would continue to work in those small parts of the field, but they used him everywhere. And again, against a really good Seattle defense as well. So I think Edelman kind of moves back. I mean, at this point, I don't know if you were sitting him to begin with. I was still playing him in hopes for best, but if you sat him, you can bump him back into your starting lineup now. I think that was probably the most, the most not surprising, but the most intriguing thing for me, I guess. Was something I wanted to talk about with their backfield, but I'm going to save it for waivers because I think it does kind of play into that as well. For Seattle's side here, they are letting Russ cook. Holy crap. I mean,
9 passing touchdowns in 2 games. It's incredible.
It's interesting to me because I brought this up in the offseason. It was either I'm pretty sure it was when we either previewed the Seattle season or we talked about the award winners, that in the entire time Russell Wilson has been in the NFL and done some of the amazing things he's done, he's never received one first place vote for the MVP. That might change this year if he continues playing the way that he is. I think it's very easily him, Josh Allen, and Kyler Murray are heads above everybody else right now. I know we're only 2 games in, but those 3 have looked by far the best players and best quarterbacks in the league. And I think if I'm a Russell fan, if I'm a Lockett, Metcalf fan, let's just hope that Pete Carroll doesn't go get in his offensive coordinator's ear and be like, hey, we need to start running the ball more, because them letting him cook is working out for that offense. He gets you 33 points. Carson gets you 19, Metcalf 19, and Lockett as well. Again, you just mentioned it, 9 touchdowns in 2 games. I mean, are you hoping or expecting this is going to continue throughout the season? My biggest fear is when it starts to get cold and we start to get to those winter months, kind of something you mentioned yesterday with Derrick Henry. It's kind of when Derrick Henry comes alive because he can punish you with those bruising runs. Are you worried at all that Seattle might start to revert back to the run when we start getting into the later months of the season?
But Seattle isn't one of those, deep East Coast teams or Midwest teams where they get a ton of snow. It can snow there, but more you get like weather 60s, 50s, 40s. I think they're still going to want to run the ball. But I think they have passing weapons they like. If you look at that game, Chris Carson has 3 passing touchdowns so far this season. Yeah. Pretty great. They used all their receivers. For a long time, it's like, who's wide receiver 3 for Seattle? It doesn't matter. They won't even support 2. There's David Moore catching like 38-yard bomb. I can't even remember the 4th receiver that they used 4 different wide receivers.
I know David Moore caught that one in the end zone, didn't he? Like right in the corner of the end zone for the touchdown?
Different receivers to catch 4 touchdowns, because it was a graphic during the game. The Patriots gave up passing touchdowns to wide receivers only 4 in all of 2019. They gave up 4 in that game to Seattle. Lockett got one, Metcalf got one, Moore got one. Yeah, I didn't pull all the stats, but they're spreading the ball around. They didn't even, we saw Disley catch some passes. They had some targets to Greg Olsen. Actually, you could almost say Russ threw 6 touchdowns because that one to Olsen, he tipped it perfectly to the defender and it got run back for a touchdown. But, they look like they've really found something with their passing game and they want to lean into that with Russell. And I still think, though, it's going to be a little bit like what we see with Green Bay. They can throw the ball around, and Rodgers has shown that he can do that. But they also know that they have a running game. They ran quite a bit with Carson. They have Carlos Hyde there. So I think they will run. But this is a signal, I think, of a little bit of a switch.
Yeah, and again, I think it's a great thing if you're one of those people who grab Russell Wilson who's going as like the 3rd to 6th quarterback off the board. You're thrilled right now because if he's going to keep doing this, it's even more interesting because I know it's something Dennis has brought up before, and I know I agreed with them because it's always seemed to look that way. Is that Russell's always kind of seemed to struggle at the beginning of the season, kind of take 3 or 4 weeks to kind of really get into it, and I mean he's look like easily the best wide receiver in it was Chris Carson. Chris Carson was the other. No, Fred Swain. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Fred Swain. I knew I was going to look it up.
Freddie Swain.
Yeah, Freddie Swain. Which is ironic because they have Dorsett on that team. Josh Gordon's somewhere on that team.
Well, I know Dorsett just went on the IR. I saw that earlier. So, well, not that really matters for us in fantasy wise, but so I mean, if you have anybody on the Seattle team, at least those top guys, they're good to go every single week. Especially, I love to if you're a Carson owner. He's a guy that I bought into in a couple of my dynasty startups. I know he's on a contract year this year, but the way that Pete Carroll loves him like a son to begin with, and now seeing him getting that adding pass catching stuff is just. Chris Carson's eating, DK's eating. It's great. If you got any shares in that offense, you're happy right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, within reason. I still think it's those 4 are like automatic starts. Wilson, Carson, Metcalf, Lockett. Tight end we've seen is a little volatile, and I wouldn't expect David Moore to catch 38-yard bombs every week.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm not talking about anybody outside of those 4. My bad. Yeah, I'm just talking about those guys. Those are the guys that you're buying all into. Mm-hmm. So the Monday Night Football game, as I mentioned, was a surprise. I kind of felt bad because someone asked me, they were like, hey, man, I want to put some money on the Raiders winning this game. It's like, don't do it, man. There's no shot. And they end up winning by 10 points, 34-24. I mean, just wow. I want to start with the Las Vegas side because I think there's more questions with the Saints, so we can spend a little bit more time with the Saints side here. So on Las Vegas, Carr gets you 21 points, Jacobs 13, Edwards 6.5, Zay Jones 8, and Darren Waller 28. I mean, Waller the baller. If you had any doubts about him, he's proven you wrong already. He's an automatic start. Carr actually looked kind of good, so I was. It makes me feel good because that's kind of touting all off season that he might be, a low-end QB2 if they let him throw the ball more. Still think he holds on to the ball a little bit too long, but he did look good out there. I liked seeing a couple big plays from Bryan Edwards as well. He had that one, I think it was like a 3rd and 13, great big play. And I feel like I kind of have to admit I might be wrong on Josh Jacobs. I mean, even though he didn't get into the end zone yesterday, he had 30 touches. Like, he's clearly going to be the guy. So, I mean, I guess the big question is going to be Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar. We have now seen Zay Jones. He didn't make any plays last week, but he gets a touchdown.
That's going to be the 2020 Raiders. Yeah. Every week they're just going to bring back somebody you didn't. When I saw because I didn't see the first half because I had that meeting at work that I told you about that ran until almost 7. Then I got home and deferred to Lindsay to watch a TV show with her since she fundamentally didn't see me on Sunday. Yeah. And so then I'm like, second half, and I'm looking it up and I'm like, Jones, who the is Jones on the Raiders? And then I click it and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot Zay Jones still played in the NFL. And I didn't realize he was on the team. I feel like that's what the 2020 Raiders are going to gift to us. Is a touchdown to someone you didn't even know was still playing football every week. If they can keep it going, God bless John Gruden. He's getting a Christmas card from me.
Yeah, and I will say that I do not think you can start him or Nelson Aguilar at all. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be those two guys. Like we've all said it, and I'm pretty sure all three. I know Dennis is. I'm pretty sure we're all on the train that Bryan Edwards is the best wide receiver on that team.
Yeah.
He's
it's
not
just
going to
take some time.
Yeah, for me, I've been saying from the beginning, I don't think he takes that step forward till next year, though. I think it's going to take time. He's still coming off the injury. I'm going to be honest. I mean, if Carr keeps playing like he did last night, he'll still be the quarterback. But there was a lot of questions about whether he'll even be the quarterback in the future. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think you're starting.
The other thing I would say is, watching the game, they took a few shots to Ruggs. They didn't hit any. Yeah. But some of those games they're going to hit. The problems for me with the Raiders, I'm starting Waller. I feel good about Jacobs. Yeah. Carr, I think, actually is a solid QB2 right now. They have 5 or 6 guys at receivers. Somebody's going to do something. Good luck picking it out.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what I was going to say. I think you're the 3 guys that you're for sure starting every single week are going to be Jacobs, Waller, and Carr now at this point. And Carr, more obviously super flex. If you're one QB league, I would say he's probably going to come in now. I think he has been anyways, but he's probably going to come in between the 15 and 20 mark for me every single week. You might have someone better than him. If you've got somebody better, start him, obviously. For me on the wide receivers, I think, and we talked about this, I didn't think Henry Ruggs was going to be more than like a Deshaun Jackson type. He's going to be, if you got him in best ball, there are going to be some weeks you love that you drafted him because they are going to connect. There was, like you said, they took, I know 3 at least that I saw.
And they got a couple penalties off that. So
yeah,
from an NFL standpoint, it's working. From our standpoint.
No, yeah, because of the points, right? So, like this was, if say, it's just like Marquise Brown last year. If they hit on all 3 of those, that happened last year between Lamar and Marquise Brown in a couple of games, you're going to be loving life the weeks that you start him. If you're not in best ball, I'm with you. Good luck choosing the right weeks to start Henry Ruggs because he's going to be the weeks where he gets you 40 points, and there's going to be weeks where he gets you like 2. Like it's just that's the way it's going to be.
That's what it feels like, not only for the style of play, but for the way they're using him. He's either going to be wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 101. And you're probably going to get 101 more times than you ever get 1. And that's the.
But I mean, as I said, I loved what I saw out of Edwards. I'm hoping he gets more and more involved. I like I said, I know I was talking about it on Twitter a little bit. I got him in like the 3rd and 4th round in a lot of my rookie drafts, and I could not be more excited about that kid.
Bummed they went away from him because he had those 2 for 42 in the first half, and they just didn't find a way to. I thought, well, maybe he's on his way to a good game, but they mix and match so much. It'll be interesting to see if Renfro. I think he got knocked out with a concussion.
Yes,
at the end of that game, so that might open up some. It's probably going to open up time for Zay Jones. What am I saying?
So here's the interesting thing on Edwards is I saw this, and I wish I could remember who tweeted it out. It was someone that's with an NFL account. They had the blue check mark and everything. Yeah. They were saying that while Edwards looked really good, the reason he didn't pop even more last night is because they actually had Marshawn Lattimore shadowing him most of the night. Yeah. And in the tweet, and I'll see if I can find it because I'm pretty sure I retweeted it. That's what he was saying. That shows you what other NFL teams think of Bryan Edwards, that they're putting their best cornerback on him 2 weeks into the NFL season. So again, we're all on the agreement here on the round table that he's going to be an absolute stud. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it before next year, but I mean, what we saw yesterday was definitely encouraging, and I can't wait to see more of him. The Saints side, there's about one player I can't wait to see more of, and that's Alvin Kamara. Dude's been legit. He's been awesome. 38 points last night.
I mean, you guys made fun of me when I said he could be in for a running back 1 season.
Yeah,
running and receiving, and he's looked like by far their best player. He looks strong. He looks healthy. Thank God he's available. I mean, if it wasn't for him, Zeke and Jacobs and Aaron Jones, we'd probably all be crying about the running back position.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll agree with you. You're right. I did not think it was possible, and mostly for me because he's just been beat up every year, and I've wondered if he can hold up. But he has been so far. He's looked like one of the best running backs. You could argue the best. I mean, after what Aaron Jones did Sunday, it's hard.
What neither of us knew is that Drew Brees is now captain checkdown.
Yeah, that's to me the most concerning part about it.
Yes.
Emmanuel Sanders does nothing at 2 points. Traquan Smith did get the most targets, though, with 13, so I guess that's good. If you're a Thomas owner, maybe you're able to snag him off the waiver wire. He seems to be the guy Drew Brees is going to. Jared Cook really doesn't do much outside of the touchdown, so I honestly thought Cook was going to have a big game. He seemed to be the one who kind of stepped up last week when Thomas got hurt. And then Brees, just 14 points. And I think that's my biggest fear is Brees. I kind of equated week 1 to possibly being rust, Tampa Bay's defense being so good. Now we're 2 weeks in, and I don't want to sound off the alarm bells because I've said it for a lot of teams that I think they need 3 or 4 weeks. This is kind of their preseason, but Brees does not look good from what I've seen. And personally, I'm terrified of this whole team now, except for Kamara. Kind of what were your thoughts watching that second half of that game and where it's leading you with New Orleans? Because we all picked them to make the Super Bowl, and I told you, Saints fans, when we did that, they were not going to make it, and maybe it's the curse of us.
Yeah, so I've watched quite a bit of Brees this season because I watched that whole Saints Buccaneers game. Denver wasn't playing on that opening Sunday. Arguably hasn't played yet. But I see, I watched a lot of that, got to see a lot in that primetime game. We're going to get to see him again on Sunday Night Football. Going into this season, we talked about how at some point in time, these seemingly ageless wonder QBs are going to fall off. I don't think Tom Brady has looked very sharp or very good as a passer. He's gotten some benefit of the doubt because he went to a new team and has new players. But he definitely at times has really looked like a 43-year-old playing professional quarterback. And I thought the same thing of Brees. You're talking about the most accurate passer in the history of the NFL. Some of these balls are just way off. The further that you go away from the line of scrimmage, the more, I have kept waiting in these 2 games just for Brees to click in and start mailing the ball. But you saw even in crucial clutch situations last night, he's dumping it down to Kamara around the line of scrimmage. Deontay Harris got so much run because he was doing these short crosses 2 or 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. Those are the kind of balls he's hitting. I'm wondering if that's really why Cook and Sanders weren't doing a lot. I mean, in opening day, Drew Brees did not cross 100 yards passing until the fourth quarter when he landed a 46-yard bomb over the top to Cook that gave him 144 yards passing for the game. They won that game. Their defense kind of dominated. The Buccaneers made a lot of mistakes. Kamara was going pretty good, but I think it covered over. It was not a very good passing game in week 1. I think they said he was something 18 for 30. Which isn't very good. And then yesterday, when you got to these clutch situations, just thinking waiting for the old Brees. But I think that's why they didn't. I almost texted you guys. I posted it somewhere. I did Emmanuel Sanders die? And no one told me because when you saw that 0, I was like, did he go deep sea fishing with Will Fuller this week? Even the announcer said something like, "Oh, well, there we finally see Emmanuel Sanders. Thought he'd be involved in this game." I'm sure he thought he was going to be too. Something doesn't look right. Maybe they're still working into game shape, but you never know at this point in time. We've noted that with Ben a little bit too. He got some benefit of the doubt because he missed almost last year, but he's 38. Rivers. Same draft class. I mean, I think we're seeing some of these older quarterbacks. You can't keep it going forever. And, we might be closer to the end than we had thought going in.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say that I've kind of thought that to begin with. I know we talked about it because I know he signed a 2-year contract, I think, with the Saints. Now they can get out of it, or he can decide to leave at the end of this year. And I'd kind of said that I think even if they made the Super Bowl again and lost, that he would kind of call it because he didn't look that great at times last year either. He looked great when he came back, but he also missed 6 or 7 weeks last year because of the injury. So I was kind of worried about him kind of continuing on. Like I said, I didn't think Brady was going to be that good going to Tampa either because he didn't look that good in New England. And a lot of people were blaming that. Well, they don't have the weapons around on the offensive line. It's like, well, yeah, but he also doesn't look great. So it's going to be something interesting to watch. Like I said, I'll give him 3-4 weeks. I'll give him 1 to 2 more weeks to see if anything turns around because we mentioned it's really been a weird offseason. We cannot completely judge them on what we've seen so far, but definitely not great if you're a fan of either one of those teams here to start off the year. I guess you're probably looking at that and thinking, even though Atlanta's blown 2 leads, they might end up being the winner of this division if Tampa Bay and New Orleans can't turn it around, because I don't see Carolina being able to get up there as much as I love the Panthers. All right. Waiver wires. I'm going to start with the quarterbacks here. So I was going through and pulling this up as we were talking. A bunch of the guys here who are kind of the most, they're all under 50% ownage, which makes sense on most of them. And I just kind of want to get your thoughts. If you need a quarterback, what are you thinking? So I pulled up just based on the list of their projected top ads. So right now, Gardner Minshew, this is redraft, obviously. I know most of you guys probably listen to this for Dynasty. These guys are all owned in Dynasty leagues. We're kind of focusing on this as a redraft thing right now. Minshew, 33%, Justin Herbert, 4%, Baker Mayfield, 47%, Ryan Tannehill at 46%, Mitch Trubisky at 8%, and then Derek Carr. David Carr is not owned anywhere. Derek Carr at 17%. So that's their ownership right now, or what their roster ownership.
David Carr might be owned by Dennis because he makes that mistake.
He does like David Carr. So yeah.
Why does Carr have 0? I'm playing.
Yeah, Derek Carr is 17% roster. I should say rostered. There we go. Ownership always sounds bad. So out of those guys, I'll read the names again. Minshew, Herbert, Mayfield, Tannehill, Trubisky, and Carr. Kind of how would you rank them? Who would be the guys that you're attacking?
So Tannehill would probably be one that I would go for first. Then probably Minshew because I've liked his poise and I think his team's going to be down. And then Carr. I think Carr is going to be more successful, but Minshew might actually have the opportunity to be passing more. Mm-hmm. Then I would go Mayfield and then Trubisky. Trubisky has looked fine, but I'm not 100% trusting that. Herbert is an interesting one. We actually got that question in the Discord from our friend Justin, who was looking, he had Locke and Garoppolo as his quarterbacks in 14-team redraft. So he was looking at doing some pickups, and based on his people that were available, we told him Baker was probably the best option to start. But I suggested Herbert's a guy, if you have the space, you pick him up and stash him. Unfortunately, his team seems to be giving every indication they're going to go back to Taylor probably as soon as this week if he's healed from his mystery chest ailment. But Herbert looked good. He was drafted as the quarterback of the future. I'm honestly surprised after what we saw against the Kansas City team that they would dial it back. I don't know if it's fair to call it a mistake at this point, but it feels like a mistake. But he's somebody I would grab because I think, by the time we hit mid-October, he's going to be in there.
Yeah, I think for me, it's mostly the same in order. I mean, Tannehill, I don't expect him to put up 40-plus points every single week, but he's clearly not we were all, at least I'll say I was a little bit worried with what we saw out of him last year. Coming into this year that he might drop off a little bit, he looks like the same guy. And so as long as he can stay healthy, I think he's going to continue to produce. For me, Minshew, I could see the argument with Minshew over Tannehill as well, because I do think they're likely going to end up having to pass more because of their defense. So you might end up getting more maybe garbage time points at him, but he has kept the games close. I just like Tannehill's got a little bit more rushing upside. For me, Carr and Herbert are like right there together. I like Carr, but I think Herbert has the higher ceiling because of the rushing. But again, like you just mentioned, the biggest thing is we don't know for sure when he's going to see the field again. Like I said on yesterday's episode, my hope is that it's, Tyrod's only 90% for like the next couple weeks, and then Herbert's just the guy the rest of the season moving forward, but we don't know. I mean, Anthony Lynn has been very, very infusive that Tyrod Taylor is going to be his quarterback. So
my ideal situation, like if I have Drew Brees or Tom Brady as my quarterback,
yeah,
I'm going to go and snap up Herbert because I drafted those guys because I think there's still potential for them to be a top end. We talked with Bob this offseason. Brees was one of the guys who always scores and the consistency guy. That's why he was such a trendy high pick in Scott Fishbowl. I'm not ready to give up on him after 2 games, but I would love to have the upside hedge of a Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Like, if I can get him, obviously I'm taking him. I mean, I'm trying to trade for him in a couple leagues right now just because I love the kid and what he showed me was phenomenal. But like I said, that's going to be your biggest thing. I wouldn't count. I would do exactly what you said. If you've got a Brady or my God, why the other name? Breeze, or even I'm trying to think of someone else who's kind of underperformed. Stafford. If you've got someone you know you can play for probably the next couple weeks, just in case Herbert doesn't get the job yet. Oh God, I probably would. I would rather just take the 0 from Justin Herbert than what Kirk Cousins gave you last week. So, yeah, but I'm with you on that. I think, and then Baker, Trubisky. I think, in all honesty, I probably put Herbert just a tad above Carr, and then put the rest of those Trubisky, Herbert, and Carr Baker all kind of in the same area. Like, I like Baker's upside, but I kind of need to see it more. I like what we saw last week, but as I talked about on the Friday pod with you guys, I do think that he's going to fall into more of that maybe 15, 20 pass attempts. And if he doesn't get you a couple touchdowns, he's not going to come through for you. So it's kind of one of those things where he might not come through. So I'm as much as it hurts me to say iffy on Baker's upside right now.
Fair.
For the running backs, this is going to be the interesting one. So Darrell Henderson, who obviously had the huge game last week, just 34% rostered. Mike Davis, 8%. I threw a couple other lower guys in on here that I'm interested in. LaMichael Pirine, 3% rostered. Dion Lewis, 6%. Wayne Gallman, 1%. Devonta Freeman, 15%. And then the guy that I was going to mention with the Patriots stuff, Damian Harris, is only 25% rostered right now. Save him or actually, I'll just go into it right now. I actually think he might be a sneaky ad because nobody has looked good at all in that backfield. Rex Burkhead has not looked good. Sony has not looked good. Now, is Harris's upside cap some with Cam's running and him getting touchdowns in the red zone? Absolutely. But if Harris can get some of the catches and everything, we don't know when James White is going to be back. We should have mentioned this earlier, and I apologize. Our condolences to him and his family with everything he's going through. That's a horrible situation. I think he should take as much time as he needs because that is not easy for anybody. So I do think Harris, in my opinion, has the most upside, though, in that backfield out of anybody else on that team right now. 25% rostered. You could probably grab him. He can come back as early as week 4. He might be a guy that I would grab with an offense we're expecting to possibly be high-powered or looked better than we thought it was going to be. He's kind of a sneaky guy for me. Freeman, he didn't sign with the Giants yet, has he? I know there's been he did? Oh, he did. I must have missed that. I had no idea. Well, good for him then, I guess. I don't have him, so never mind. I'll save that rant for another day. You know what? I'm going to go into it right now. I have Barkley in a league, and the commissioner has it set up to where you can just pick up players whenever. It doesn't matter. Like, you can literally pick up players in the middle of games Sunday while they're going on. I hate that.
On Sleeper, there's a couple of ESPN locks, and you can't do the. So you can't. I was shocked at a couple of Sleeper leagues that happened. Apparently, it lets you do a waiver wire for people who have played in their games and stuff and move it around. I think that's bullshit.
Oh, I agree with you because I
saw a whole bunch of like Davis, all these guys going for huge that got snapped up on Monday afternoon. Well, I didn't know I was supposed to be putting waivers in. That's not when.
Yeah, I had in my one Yahoo one because I actually have Barkley like at 3:00 in the morning, Monday morning. Mike Davis, Wayne Gallman, and Devonta Freeman all got picked up because there was Mike Freeman got picked up literally 2 minutes after the report came out that he was going to go visit the Giants. And I had already seen that, and I was already pissed. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'll just kind of go in there. Maybe I can get Dion Lewis because they hadn't picked up Lewis yet. And so I was going to go in there and look at it, and then I saw the report for Freeman. I was like, all right, well, then I looked at my phone. He's already picked up. And I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me, man. Like, it's the dumbest thing in the world. Like, I get it throughout the week, but, I mean, it's I don't know. Because it's a small and I actually get my questions answered. Oh, thanks, Charlie. I guess I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but so yeah, I just wanted to complain about that. I meant to complain about that a week or two ago, but yeah. Anyways, back onto the running backs.
Brutal.
So Damian Harris is kind of my sleeper guy there. I was just mentioning the other guys. So how kind of would you rank those guys? Again, I'll read their names again without the ownership percentages. Darrell Henderson, Mike Davis, LaMichael P. Ryan, Dion Lewis, Wayne Gallman, Devonta Freeman, and Damian Harris. All rostered under 50%. Really, all of them are rostered under 40% even.
So I think Freeman and Davis are probably the two top guys that are going to go. Davis put up quite a good set of points coming in to, after McCaffrey got hurt in that game. And I think just the way they're playing that offense, I know it might only be 4 to 6 weeks, but you never know with those high ankle injuries. Those can recur, those can linger. So especially if you need somebody now, if you own Christian McCaffrey, you better be going for that. I was surprised he was not more picked up because I know a lot of people early in the offseason that had him were trendily drafting Reggie Bonifon, who was supposed to be that handcuff, and then just never bothered to go around and grab that one. I thought Henderson looked good. I would go for him. I think he has more of a chance to have a season-long role, but I think he's always probably going to be split and shared. So that would be a concern. Of the Giants, I like Freeman first. You definitely should be going for him, but we've seen him have trouble staying on the field. So I wouldn't say that rules out Lewis and Gallman having a role, but that being said, Lewis would be the one I would take before Gallman right now because I think the signing of Freeman probably hurts Gallman the most because Lewis does some special team stuff and some other stuff. He's always going to be active, and we saw last week the Giants literally were fine carrying 2 and making Gallman inactive. So I think initially that's probably Gallman's probably going to be better this week because of all the COVID rules. Like Denver signed Bortles today. They said he won't even be able to do team meetings until Saturday or practice until Saturday. So it's going to be the same for Devonta Freeman. The chances of knowing the game and having enough, those guys weren't in camps. So this week it's probably going to be a pretty good split between Lewis and Gallman. I would be more worried about Freeman going forward. I understand what you're saying about Harris. I don't totally disagree. The Patriots running game hasn't been good in either game. I would like to see them, it could be personnel, but it could also be that's not, when they're trying to run the ball and power run the ball, especially down at the goal line, even Michelle wasn't getting carries. They were just putting in 3 tight ends and a fullback and using Cam Newton. Yeah. That would be a big concern. As we've said with some of these other ones, even if Harris is getting, and with the Patriots, you're not going to get 80-90% of the work between the 20s, even if you are there. I mean, it was an alarming amount of Burkhead. JJ Taylor got a few snaps. White is going to be there and come mix in. I don't think they would get totally rid of Sony Michel. There are probably a few games where a Harris or a Michel's going to explode, but I don't know if I feel good about the consistency there.
Yeah, I can see that. So for me, I think Henderson's probably I agree. Davis is probably my one because you're going to have him for 4 to 6 weeks, even if you're not the CMC owner. With the way that offense kind of revolves around the running game, Teddy Bridgewater's going to dump the ball off to him. He showed last week that he could play in space now he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey, but he can still be good. After that, I think I'm going Henderson. He looked really good as well. Cam Akers with the rib cartilage, that's an injury I've suffered. That is not something easy to come back from. Even the slightest smack in those ribs is going to hurt you. So I know they did say that Brown's finger is better.
Hand or finger, yeah.
He should be able to play, but with as good as Henderson looked, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to start and gets most of the run, kind of like what we saw out of Malcolm Brown in week 1.
We've seen, too, a hand and a finger is more dicey for a running back than any other position just because people are bunching and trying to grab. I mean, if you were watching that game last night, they were just basically looked like MMA fighters when they were going at Jacobs at times. So those are the things you worry about.
And then for me, I guess 3 would still be Freeman, but I do think, like you just mentioned with the COVID protocols, and then on top of that, we don't know what kind of football shape he's in either. So you might not be looking at getting anything out of him till week 4 or 5. So you need to, if you grab Freeman, you're going to need to grab somebody else who can get you some points because he's not coming in week 3 and giving you anything. And I would honestly say there's a shot he may not play week 4 either. So you're not going to get Freeman right away. Lewis and Gallman or whatever for me. I mean, Gallman, as I know you mentioned it in our Discord channel, he had moments last year where he kind of stepped up and played good, but it was like 2 out of the 4 games that Barkley was out. So I don't really know which way to go with that. Like I said, I like Harris. Another sneaky one for me, I think, is P. Ryan. I know Gore got a lot of work last week, but P. Ryan, they drafted him, I think, to be the guy of the future. Maybe he gets a little bit of run here if Gore starts to struggle. A guy I wouldn't spend a lot of money on if you're going fab. And like I said, Harris, I'm with you. I don't know if he is, but I could see him being a sneaky if he ends up being better than the rest of them. I do think if Harris comes out there and he shows like he was supposedly showing in camp, I think Burkhead and Taylor go away. And I think it then comes down to James White, Sony Michel, Harris. Again, I agree. And that's why I said you're going to lose out on touchdowns with Cam Newton. But if he's still getting a lot of rushing work and catches, a guy you're getting off the waiver wire now here in week 3, if he can get you 10 to 12 points a game, I'm taking that right now, because who knows what's going to happen in week 3. Like, I'm terrified to even see who might get hurt this coming week. So for me, whatever I can get at this point, I'm taking. And I don't think a lot of people will be targeting Harris. Again, 25% rostered. I don't think a lot of people are thinking about it. He could be a guy you could wait one more week because he won't be able to come back until week 4. But I kind of feel like he's going to pop up more or more people are going to mention him by the time week 3 is over with, because he can come off the IR. And if he comes off the IR before waivers run Wednesday, he's going to be a guy people are going to target just in case. So if you've got an extra bench spot, or if you've got a spot, maybe you can drop somebody, pick him up, and then drop him straight to your IR and then pick somebody else back up. Do that. He's a guy I'd stash for now and just kind of see what happens. Wide receivers really wasn't much. Laviska Shenault, who's 17% rostered, Russell Gage, who's still only 23% rostered, and then Traquan Smith, who we just talked about earlier, 15% rostered. How would you attack those 3 guys, or is there anybody else that you would add to this list? Because I did not see. I mean, there wasn't much on there. It was KJ Hamler, Van Jefferson. There wasn't a lot available on a lot of these waiver wires.
So I would say I wouldn't be moving to go for Smith. He had an okay game, but Michael Thomas actually has been upgraded to questionable for this week. Is agitating play. And we just talked about Drew Brees. I think if Thomas, Sanders, Kamara, and Cook are out there, going to be tough. They seem to like Deontay Harris too. I noticed when I was, in that first game when everybody was available, Harris was the guy coming in often and not Traquan, because he's real fast and just runs those kind of short routes where they get him the ball in space and hope he can take off. Gage would be the top one I'd be going to, because as much as it was weird to believe, he seems like he's locked in and they found something there, and Atlanta's defense looks horrible. I think they're going to be throwing a lot. Shenault is the next I would go for. And I know you didn't put him up there, but I actually would go, if you have space, and stash KJ Hamler. He looked pretty good getting the ball in space. Sutton's gone for the year now. I think Hamler and Judy, it's going to be some growing pains, some slow going, like we talked about with the Raiders. But I think those guys are coming out. They worked to get Hamler the ball. They did some end arounds to get him the ball in space. He had 8.7 points, which wasn't too bad for kind of a rookie coming in against the Pittsburgh defense with the backup quarterback and Sutton starting the game. He's not going to be a top option, but I actually liked what I saw and like the kind of potential there.
Yeah, and Hamler is just 1% rostered, so he should be available in your leagues, and he is toward the top of that list. I just wasn't sure, so I'm going to be on. That's why I didn't put him on there, because I was kind of like, well,
and that's kind of a gut feeling. I don't know if that's a rock solid, but Denver's been so devastated with injuries.
Yeah, I think I would go in the exact same order as you. Obviously, Gage is the easy one. He really seems to be incorporated in that offense. Again, you're not getting him to be that wide receiver 1 or 2. He's going to be one of the, your flex options. But I mean, if it looks like Atlanta's going to be in a shootout every single game, so he could eventually get you the points. I do like Shenault as well. Seeing a couple of good plays out of him. They're actually giving him carries as well. So if he ends up breaking, at least I did, because I watched a lot of tape on him. I did the rookie profile on him for Dynasty Nerds. If he breaks a couple of those big runs like he did at Colorado, that's going to bring you a ton of points as well. So I do like Shenault. Let's go. We got one question really quick, and then we'll do tight end. So thoughts on Ronald Jones? Not good.
I'm worried.
With what Fournette came in and did, I would think it's going to be Fournette's job moving forward. Now, I don't know if that's a bad thing for Ronald Jones. We talked about it yesterday. I would not be surprised if Bruce Arians doesn't try and move him with all these running back injuries. And I think that would be a good thing for Ronald Jones. I've been saying it all offseason. Ronald Jones is going to be a stud once he gets to a new team. He did not fit well with Tampa Bay to begin with. And Bruce Arians coming over here, he does not fit well in that offense. I think it's time for him to move on. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a resurgence of him. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be in running back 1, but a low-end RB2 I think is in his future if he can land on a team that values him the correct way.
I'm worried for this year. I don't actually think they will try to move him because of, COVID and the rampant injuries. I think everybody is looking like now you cannot have enough depth. There is no such thing as enough depth. And behind him, if something was to happen to Fournette, if they got rid of him, you have Vaughn, which is kind of an unknown, and McCoy, who is kind of known, but well past his prime. So if something's, let's say Fournette tears an ACL, you still have a workhorse back in Ronald Jones and these other complementary pieces. I don't see him moving. I think what unfortunately is going to be the case is we're going to have another year like he went through last year with him and Peyton Barber. I think there still will be times where game script, flow, Fournette makes a mistake and Jones is in there and has a somewhat decent game, but it's going to be hit or miss. And those of us that took him hoping we were going to get an RB2 season this year, it's still going to be a bit of a mess. And, there's still questions I have about Brady. If they can't develop a little more consistency and look a little sharper as a passing game, it won't really matter who their running back is because defenses will start to shift more in the box and try to force Brady to beat them over the top. They have the receivers for it, but maybe they don't actually have the quarterback for it.
Yeah. All right. To wrap it up, tight ends. We've actually got quite a few on here. So Jordan Reed is 15% rostered. I'm sorry, 7% rostered. Mo Alley Cox, 1%. Jordan Akins, 2%. Drew Sample, 1%. And Dalton Schultz, 3%. All of which I think present a fair amount of upside outside of probably the top two because they're going to be more injury dependent on whether they continue in Reed and Cox. But where would you rank these tight ends?
This one's tough a little bit. I think it depends on your philosophy, where your roster's at, and how many tight ends you're wanting to keep. I think we were both surprised how much run Schultz got.
Yeah.
Sample, it looks like they're trying to use the tight end. Of the people on this list, he's the one that's pretty much a guaranteed starter. He and Akins seem to be starters who their quarterback is developing rapport to them. To me, that means if you're looking for somebody who you can play reliably, who's maybe a tight end that you work into the rotation or somebody because you need to have a tight end who you can play every week, those two probably rise to the top for me just because of their position and their competition. Schultz, he looked really good. I've been saying they have 3 wide receivers. Someday they're going to remember they have 3 wide receivers and that Gallup still plays for their team, but they also have their running back to get involved. And I don't think we're going to see them put up 40 points every week or be quite as pass heavy. Not a bad pickup. I like Reed. I actually think even when Kittle comes back, he could have a role because they don't have dominant receivers. And he's somebody that has a history. My fear with him is he's one hit away from being done. Many of us were surprised he continued. I thought after that last concussion in Washington that knocked him out all last year, he was probably going to be done. He looked incredible last week. Probably will get some good run this week. I've picked him up in a few places. I think he's a guy you grab if you want some Hail Mary upside because I think that's really what he's offering. Cox, I do not have a good feel for. Week 1, we didn't see Doyle do a lot. I had thought tight end was going to be a big part of what the Colts did. And then Doyle missed week 2. It looks like he's tracking to play this week. What happens when they're both out there? I think you mentioned with Campbell, we know it's going to be gone at least 3 weeks because they put him on IR.
Yeah.
Will we see more tight end work or will some of that work just now go to Nyheim Hines? What does Rivers have left? Game scripts, it was a pretty positive game script for the Colts who just destroyed Minnesota. much to our surprise. What does a negative game script for this team look like? Because we didn't see any receivers really pop. It was a lot of dumps to the back in week 1 when they were struggling with Jacksonville. So I see the appeal based on what he did, but given his situation and there's no definitive proof that he's going to be the guy or that he's going to have a substantial role, I would be comfortable letting my league mates blow fab to pull him in based on what they saw last week. And I would go for one of the other guys. I think, for me, it's probably Akins, Sample, Schultz, Reed, Cox.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much the same as you. I think Sample would probably be my one just because while I think Akins is the better tight end, he does have to compete with Darren Fells there, who they still clearly have in the rotation, where Sample, we kind of talked about it because you made the joke last Thursday about Sample making plays, and then unfortunately Uzoma gets hurt. He comes out there and does it. And it was pointed out.
It wasn't a joke. You just took it as a joke.
Yeah, I took it as a joke.
Ignore my laughter.
Great clairvoyance call by Matt Thursday before the podcast. But Ray Garvin, who, again, very respected in the college game and everything he does in fantasy football, pointed out, and I didn't even really think about it, is that's where Joe Burrow loves to operate, is the middle of the field, which is where Sample's going to be. And I think we can all agree, out of everybody on this list, that's the team with the worst defense, who is going to probably be throwing the ball a ton. So I think Sample is just a smidge above Akins for me. I think Akins, better athlete, better overall tight end. I probably go Sample, Akins, then same. Schultz, Reed. I think if you have Doyle, I still would rather get one of those other guys before Mo Alley Cox. And then Cox would be like my last resort, as you kind of mentioned. Reed, I'm with you. I'm a little bit worried about, especially now with Nick Mullins being in there, like how they might lean more on the tight ends. I think Jimmy G's out for at least this week. I don't know. I can't remember if they said he's longer than that, but I know Nick Mullins is starting Sunday.
I think it has to do a little bit with the turf. There was a lot of talk that with the guys who got banged up looking, playing the long game, that the 49ers were content. Also, they're playing the Giants, so I don't know exactly how worried they are.
Yeah, so I would think with that, you've at least got Reed. Even if he doesn't stay in the game plan, you've got him for at least one more week, because we talked about this Monday. Neither one of us think they're going to let Kittle play this week. It's going to be, again, hey, man, just take a break. Your knees, let's let the knee heal up. We really don't need you versus the Giants. Come back in week 4. So for me, Sample, Akins, Schultz, Reed, Cox, pretty much the same as you. I would just flip Sample and Akins. That will do it for us today. We do not have a podcast tomorrow, so we'll be back on Thursday to preview. Was Jags Dolphins correct?
Dolphins at the Jags. Actually, turning out that when they first said, when they first said it, I was like, ooh. And then the more I've thought about it, I'm like,
yeah, might not actually be a bad game. If you guys are not watching,
ready.
Yeah. Oh, I'll be rocking jorts and a mankini with the bro tank. If you're not watching live, check out Thrive Fantasy. You can use our promo code GEEK. You deposit $20, you get $20 back. It's a lot of fun. I actually won $150 on Thrive this weekend, so won a lot of money on the college side on DraftKings, which I was pretty excited about. But I need to temper expectations because I know it's going to happen. I'm going to get too excited and I'm going to blow it all this weekend. So, but definitely go on there. It's a lot of fun. Free, not free, but daily fantasy. They have a little bit different stuff than DraftKings and FanDuel as well. So check it out. Helps us out. It's a lot of fun. You guys can hit us up for questions. Ricky, any of us, again, Discord channel. If you want to jump in there and talk football with us, go to musiccitydrivein.com. There's a link there, or you can hit any of us up on Twitter and we will give you a link as well. Hope you guys enjoy your Tuesday and